Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. I'm Chris Bartgall, and today I'm going to be reviewing this album, Electric Light Orchestra's Out of the Blue. Now this album actually was the runner-up in my albums bracket, so that's why I'm reviewing it today of all days. Last week's review was Simon Garfunkel's Sounds of Silence, which was the winner. It beat this out in the final round, but I said I would review the winner and the runner-up both next, so here it is, Electric Light Orchestra, Out of the Blue. Now, before we begin, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and also go watch my other Electric Light Orchestra album reviews, as I have reviewed all the albums from Electric Light Orchestra 2 up through this one, and I will be talking about a lot of the previous albums, especially El Dorado, Face the Music, and A New World Record, which his review came out a few weeks ago. So I would like to encourage you all to go watch those after this, possibly before this if you want, and without further ado, let's get on to the main album review. 1977's Out of the Blue is the 7th studio album by Electric Light Orchestra. Musically, it is very similar to Face the Music and A New World Record, as all three of them are a collection of shorter orchestral pop rock songs mixed with some slightly proggier album tracks here or there. The lineup on Out of the Blue is mostly the same as the Pearl album, with the exception of the female backing vocalist being completely gone, despite their prominence on the previous two albums. Most of the backing vocals here are handled either by bassist Kelly Gilcutt or an El Dorado-styled choir, and honestly, it works just as well here, if not better. Out of the Blue was written pretty quickly, and released only a year after A New World Record came out. This, combined with Out of the Blue's status as a double album, leads to having a somewhat scatterbrained approach to the track listing, with a variety of ideas and odds and ends of what feel like incomplete concepts laying about. The songs are all generally very sturdy parts, even if they aren't always being used for the right purpose. Think of it like using a stool as an end table. The album's pacing isn't as good as some of their other efforts. I usually prefer single LPs over double albums, and it was also a format that ELO had learned to work perfectly within prior to this. Out of the Blue, despite being a collection of great songs, does not always do the later ones quite as much credit as it probably should have, when both LPs are listened to back-to-back. Side 1 of the album is a great collection of songs that deal with relationships, with the first three especially being great songs about breakups. Side 2 meanders around a bit, with the songs taking a bit of a dip in quality in places due to some weaker drummer exercises, among other things. Side 3 is a mini-symphony called Concerto for a Rainy Day. It works together well to convey a theme about a person's mood and the human condition. Side 4 is a bit of a hodgepodge, albeit a more even quality than Side 2. Format-wise, the album does seem a bit confused at times. While it has a great opener, it passes up several great album closers in Sweet as the Night and The Well, to end with Werst Hero. A good song, but not really right song to end the album on. Electric Light Orchestra only got fully into gear musically on El Dorado, and after that, they would continue in the style up through the end of this album. Out of the Blue pays homage to El Dorado at a couple of points throughout, with Side 3 seeing ELO return to the concept album format, and several of the album's other songs such as Jungle and Werst Hero being on the theme of dreaming and short fantasy vignettes. Concerto for a Rainy Day also, in some ways, foreshadows where ELO would go early on in the 1980s. 1981's Time would once again see ELO make a concept album that explores similar themes about comparing a relationship to things like a day-night cycle, rivers such as rain, as well as just the passage of time as a whole, as well as the seasons. While Out of the Blue is a bit more of a hodgepodge than the band's three preceding albums, it does serve as a great collection of the sound Electric Light Orchestra had at the height of their power. After this, they would dabble in disco, synth pop, and eventually a more minimalist 80s pop rock without strings. That leaves Out of the Blue as the final testament of the pure orchestral rock style that the band had at their peak. A fitting end to the band's greatest era, even if it is just a bunch of different ideas Jeff Lynne had from this time just thrown together. As soon as Turn to Stone fades in with its zoom effect and bubbly, bouncy, barbly beat, you know this is an album that is off to just as good of a start as the last one. You've got a nice hodgepodge of ingredients united in this song's musical weave. You've got a nice, crackly electric synth line working together with Bev Bevan's drum beat to make a solid foundation. You've got the other various beeps and boops of a synthesizer. You've got Kelly Gurkut's falsetto column response vocals, and of course the string section ELO is known for. Very much in the same vein as the last album's Living Thing, Concerto has the style of poppy breakup lyric that Jeff Lynne had already mastered. It is not overly complex or thought-provoking, but it maximizes its relative compactness to effectively convey a simple emotion. The narrator feels that he turns to stone whenever his love is gone and feels like he cannot go on until she comes back. While the lyrics are almost certainly written to be about a breakup, the lyrics are vague about why the woman is gone. This unintentionally lends the song a greater degree of applicability for the listener. It could also apply to a woman who has passed away or was away for business or other reasons. While the song is simple, there are some nice bits of wordplay going on throughout. The song does not really milk the turning to stone metaphor any more than using the simple phrase, but it does feature other metaphors about light and shadow, as well as the change between night and day. The latter is admittedly a bit cliché among songwriters, but Jeff Lynne once again does it justice here, and this theme will reoccur throughout the rest of the album. The song is delivered much in the same vein as the singles from the band's previous album, A New World Record. Electric Light Orchestra feels very high energy here, a band at the absolute height of their powers continuing to churn out amazing song after amazing song. Jeff Lynne's lead vocal is great, although at this point I should really expect no less. Kelly Gurkut's falsetto also works great in conjunction with Lynne's lead, and also serves to give the song a bit more of the late 70s disco bounciness without compromising the rock aspect. The boops of the synthesizer on the song's chorus, replacing the crackle of the main synth line, makes a nice break between verse and chorus. Jeff Lynne and Kelly Gurkut also harmonize very nicely during this part, which serves as a nice contrast to the calm response on the verses. The way the string section punctuates each line of the chorus adds a nice smidgen of orchestral flair without overdoing it. The part where Gurkut sings the bridge in a very fast, desperate manner also provides a very nice break in the song, throwing yet another texture into this song, and one that especially helps to hammer home the point of the sad lyrics in a musically upbeat sounding song. Overall, this is a very strong opening track for the album. It mirrors in some way the opening track of A New World Record, Tightrope, in being a song with lyrics about feeling like everything is falling apart set to upbeat and poppy backing. If it isn't broken, then don't try to fix it is not usually a good principle when it comes to making good music, but in this case, the variety in the backing, as well as the sheer craftsmanship, make for a great subversion of that trope. It's Over continues up on much of the same themes as Turn to Stone. It's Over is a breakup song that compares the end of a relationship to the end of a day, as well as the change in the seasons. The song also has a bit of a coastal metaphor going on, comparing the breakup to being stranded on a distant shore. Jeff Lynne is always one to pack great lines into his songs, and this one does not disappoint. The lyric has almost a Paul McCartney-esque elegance to it, with the first two verses being especially memorable ones. Musically, the song is a lot less busy than the previous song. However, it is far from lethargic. The song is sung in a more sad-seeming way, but it is still pretty up-tempo. Instrumentally, the song makes greater use of the string section than the previous song, with most of the instrumentation being more classical sounding. The song even has a brief instrumental break for the piano and strings later on in the song, something that sounds similar to El Dorado-era Electric Light Orchestra. The ending lines of the song are also delivered in an operatic style, a nice touch that ties up the song quite well. Sweet Talkin Woman is once again a more poppy single-sounding song. Much like Turn to Stone, Sweet Talkin Woman features once again a good mix of stuff that works together to make it work. An elegant string section starts off the song on a great foot. The song then transitions into a very up-tempo walker with a very busy backing. You have got a good driving guitar, a different guitar riff that appears throughout, a very prominent string section, a good prominent drum beat, and more. Every now and then, the song breaks to let a vocoder read off a line to start a new verse. This was quite novel at the time, but the song would have been just as good without it. On one part of the song, a choir also joins in briefly on the backing of one verse. Unnecessary? Yep. Sweet as hell? Heck freaking yeah! What really makes the song, however, is the vocal part. Like a late 70s equivalent to what the Beach Boys were doing a decade prior, it seems deceptively simple at first, but once you pick up on it, you realize it is much more complex. In addition to Jeff Lynne's lead vocal and Kelly Gokut's falsetto, you also have parts of the chorus where Gokut, along with Jeff Lynne, sing harmony in falsetto, and then Gokut then responds in his regular voice. Also featured throughout the song is a fjord, deeper voice that I believe belongs to drummer Bev Bevan. I'm not 100% sure it is him, but sounds similar to his parts on the live versions of the song Strange Magic. Bevan also does some scanning at key parts, but his main role is to add a second voice on the parts where Gokut is doing a response vocal, and also does response when Lynne and Gokut are also singing in harmony. What is perhaps my favourite part of the song comes towards the very end. For one repetition of the chorus, the backing cuts out with the exception of a kick drum. Everything else is just the harmony vocals and Bevan's response vocals. This part of the song really drives home just how complex and layered this song is. Even with a large number of the song's elements removed, you still have a lot left. The song is about a man who has lost his woman and is looking for her. This is basically a yearning to get back together song, and it fits in well with the previous two songs on the album in lyrical tone. The song is perhaps more lyrically sparse than its predecessors on the album, but its lyrics are no less effective. Across the Border starts out with a sound of a departing train before synth starts imitation of a trumpet. Indeed, this whole song's backing has a mariachi band vibe throughout, and a trumpet solo towards the end of the song. The strings are once again prominent, and the song has a very good percussion to it. This song also sees Jeff Lynne and Kelly Gokut sing in harmony throughout the entire song, with Gokut's voice being especially prominent, something which I like. There's also a part where the vocal imitates a train whistle, which is nice and kind of humorous. Lyrically, the song is about a man trying to catch an evening train to get back to his love, who apparently lives in Mexico. The song has a great urgency and a good feel of progression to it. Despite this, it doesn't work quite well as the songs immediately preceding it. Part of this is because it is a bit less lyrically compact, and some of it is probably that the last three songs were just so strong that it's hard to follow them up with anything. Across the Border is, however, a very worthy album track that caps off an amazing side one to the album. Night in the City starts out with a cacophony of honking calls before breaking into warm guitar notes and strings. The song continues on with a mostly electric guitar and string section driven backing throughout, with parts of the strings alternate between faster and more sinister sounds. Towards the end, the calls and city noises return during the fade-out. There is also a slightly more variation in the percussion and keyboard work in the song, the notes that end the verses in particular being a great addition. The song also features more of a great vocal production that was present on the album's previous songs. The falsetto backing vocals continue to be an effective ingredient in the album's sound. The song goes through a number of vocal movements from the main verses and chorus to a more sinister sounding bridge similar to the one on Turn to Stone. The lyrics are about a woman who misses her plane out of the city and is stuck there for another night. It's not really clear why the woman is so desperate to escape the city, but she appears to be having a great deal of anxiety connected with being there. Overall, it is sort of an in media res song with lyrics that paint a detailed picture in very broad strokes and let your imagination do the rest. Starlight is the band's attempt at one of those mid-70s slow, sexy songs. It has Bee Gees album track vibes and a mostly synth and string backing. I believe the sound they were going for was a sort of UFO ballroom sort of aesthetic, but the backing does work pretty well, even if it's a little strange. The lyrics are pretty typical, being par for course on this style of song, but nothing more. Songs like this mainly live or die by their vocal production, especially the harmony. As I said before, this album's vocal production has been top-notch, and this isn't an exception. Lynne, Gokut, and Bevan all work together to make a three-part vocal harmony throughout, and it fits in pretty well with the backing. Still, it strays a little too close to being more similar to the Bee Gees' vocal harmonies, as opposed to the more Beach Boys-like production of the album's previous tracks. This isn't a dig against the Bee Gees. In fact, I'm one of their most ardent defenders, but while this approach works about as well for ELO as it did for them, it isn't as good of an approach as the vocal layering on the previous tracks of Out of the Blue. Jungle is a faster song once again, and one with a good upbeat feel and a pretty catchy chorus. This is basically if the middle part of So Fine from the previous album was made into its own song. Jungle is a happy little ditty about a guy coming across animals singing and dancing around a campfire in the woods. Although the alarm clock at the end implies it was probably just a dream, you know, it is kind of a nice little happy thing of animals all teaming up and singing and being happy and singing like peace and joy to the world together. Throughout you have a pretty good drum beat, and animal noises are also all present throughout the backing. All this said, I doubt a song like this would probably fly today. Although there was no mention of waste in the lyrics, the chorus, which the animals are supposedly singing, does sound like a Western stereotype of African languages. Combine that with the monkey noises among the other animal noises in the backing, and I'm sure if this was a modern song, it would be pretty controversial. Despite the song having, as far as I can tell, no ill intentions on Jeff Lynne or Electric Light Orchestra's part. Believe Me Now is a short instrumental that is string and vocodal oriented. A vocodal counts as an instrument, so having it read lines off technically doesn't make this a non-instrumental, right? Right? I don't know. Believe Me Now is, however, not much of a real song, despite being listed on the track listing for some reason. It really is just the opening movement to the next song, which is Stepping Out. Stepping Out is also primarily string-based in its backing, and is seamlessly connected to Believe Me Now. Stepping Out is the band once again flexing the more prog concept album muscle. It feels like a good opening song to an album, almost like a soft or ELO equivalent to The Who's Quadrophenia. Oftentimes, songs like this are defined to some degree by what happens later on, the beginning of an adventure that starts off with endless possibilities before all of the other potential roads have been closed off. Stepping Out is, however, sadly devoid of this context. There is no concept album attached, and while Jeff Lynne would make side 3 of the album a mini-suite of songs that go together, that begins with the next song. ABBA also did something similar on their album from the same year with their song I Wonder, Departure. While that song also feels like it goes nowhere, ABBA at least had the decency to include the song in a mini-symphony so as to at least try to have it lead somewhere, or at least seem like it was leading somewhere, whereas you can't really say the same here. Stepping Out is like if Lord of the Rings ended when Frodo left Bag End. It ends on what feels like a major thematic cliffhanger, even though almost nothing has happened. The song's story of a man wanting to go out and be somebody in the world is perfectly fine, if it actually leads to something or had some payoff, but as I've reiterated perhaps too many times now in this video, the song is a standalone song. A little more bombastic finish to the album, with this as an opening track, would have justified this song's somewhat lethargic feel as well, much in a similar way to what happened on one of Electric Light Orchestra's previous albums, El Dorado, although admittedly that album's opening track, even in context, or even out of context, is a lot better than Stepping Out. Still, in the end, Stepping Out does have some good elements, most notably the fourth verse. And despite the song's dead end, it does manage to convey an opening of endless possibilities pretty well, kind of like the musical equivalent of a sleepy morning on the day of a big trip. Standing in the Rain is the beginning of side 3's Concerto for a Rainy Day. The song starts out with soft chimes before going into a nice orchestral instrumental part. A lot of this song sounds awfully familiar, and if you've listened to Electric Light Orchestra 2 and El Dorado, you have probably already heard the vast majority of the song's backing before, but it does work well enough despite the feeling of déjà vu. The song overall has a kind of dangerous and dark feel to it. The lyrics are about a man who's been left out in the rain, or at least feels that way. The rain seems to be a metaphor for people misunderstanding him in the first few verses, and the later parts of the song also could indicate that this might be related to a breakup as well. The vocal harmony is once again good here, and the choir from Sweet Talkin Woman is also back. The song goes from faster, more angry and frantic sounding parts to gliding along on a more listless, depressed sounding part, a pairing that works well with the lyrics and orchestral backing. Big Wheels is a song about the narrator sitting around on a rainy day being depressed about his breakup. He muses about the will of luck and love, as well as reflects on the past and wishes his love will come back. While the metaphor of big wheels turning is a bit muddy and not well expanded upon, this is otherwise a pretty poor course lyric for a song like this, and it really doesn't stand out other than being a direct continuation of Standing in the Rain. Musically, Big Wheels is similar to Stepping Out, and being a lethargic sounding song with a mostly steady beat and some nice orchestral flourishes courtesy of the string section. Given the lyrical nature of the song, the lethargy is, of course, appropriate, but it doesn't make for the most thrilling listen on its own. Big Wheels only really works within the confines of Concerto for a Rainy Day. Summer and Lightning is a more upbeat follow-up. The song is much more guitar-driven, featuring some very good playing, and the vocals are a bit more intense than on Big Wheels. Someone Lightning also features nice crackly fundal sound effects at certain points throughout the song, something that produces a very satisfying crunch that helps the song stand out. Later on in the song, there's also a happier sounding bridge with a great beat and groove going on. The lyrics are mostly just an extension of Big Will's, with the narrator thinking about his love and daydreaming about being with her again, but with a seasonal metaphor. That said, the lyrics here feel like they fit better than those on the previous song. The seasonal metaphor fits in with the other songs in the suite better than a metaphor about wills, and the musical elements such as the thunder and the sound of rain help tie the thing together with the music and lyrics working perfectly in conjunction. Mr. Blue Sky is another more upbeat and single-worthy song, contrasting in many ways with the rest of this side of the album. Very upbeat and happy, this song is basically the poster child for the feel-good song. The song's opening notes are instantly memorable, and the lyrics all just click together perfectly. Jeff Lynne's lead vocal is great here, and he even does a falsetto of his own at times, as opposed to having Kelly Gurkut do all those parts. The chorus features a nice alternation between deeper vocals and higher falsetto vocals, a contrast that once again works perfectly. The song also has a very unique drum sound to it, apparently due to Bev Bevan hitting a fire extinguisher, which makes a very satisfying metallic clang. Despite this unusual method of hitting a, for a drum at least, oddly shaped object, the rhythm is never lost, and this song stands as perhaps the best example of Bev Bevan's proficiency at drumming. The way the fire extinguisher works is similar to the anvil on the Beatles song Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and that gives the song a little bit of extra flavor, albeit works even better here despite being less significant to the meaning of the song. Mr. Blue Sky is, of course, the most famous song on Out of the Blue, and these days is probably the most famous Electric Light Orchestra song. It is, however, not often discussed within the greater context of Side 3's Concerto for a Rainy Day. The lyrics to Mr. Blue Sky represent being happy for the sun coming back and also represent Noel finally getting over his breakup. All of this is rather self-evident, even listening to the song on its own, but the build-up of angst on the rest of Side 3 really sells this as a song that acts as a payoff and finale to the Concerto for a Rainy Day, and not just as a poppy vignette single. The song's ending instrumental movement, with the choir and the musical clouds parting, makes more sense when viewed in this context as well. While this part of the song is somewhat surprisingly played almost every time the song is, including on the radio, having this short epilogue really doesn't make sense when just viewing the song as a pop-rock single. The string section slows through everything down to a more tranquil night and caps off the entire story, showing how the narrator's mood has progressed throughout the day, from one of panic, to depression, to joy, and then ultimately to a tranquil peace with his situation at night. Side 4 begins with Sweet as the Night. While this song is a real part of Concerto for a Rainy Day, it does follow up on much of the same themes, with it being a song about the night at the end of the day, but one that paints the night in a positive light as opposed to the negative tone of night in the city. The lyrics are of a man who is reuniting with his woman at the end of the day. The woman has had a bad day, but now that the night is here, the lovers can take solace in each other during the night. The verses have a bit of a Bob Dylan feel to me, albeit a lot more subdued than the way that the Dylan influence was present on Do Ya. There are quite a few songs out there that are lyrically similar to Sweet as the Night. Bruce Springsteen had already done something similar on Born to Run album with Night, and Billy Joel would have a good one on this theme around a year later with 52nd Street's Until the Night. Still, Electric Light Orchestra's entry into this legendary canon is far more than just a worthy entry, but is also one of the best in the category. The string arrangements on the song are great throughout, and so is the electric guitar. The vocal harmony between Lynne and Gurkut is once again great, and the falsetto backing vocals are also good. The real standout of the vocal part is in the verses. At certain parts of the verses, Jeff Lynne and Kelly Gurkut switch off on who is singing the verses. Both have great voices, and the transition between the two is seamless. They feel like they are finishing each other's sentences. People who have watched my reviews of the previous two Electric Light Orchestra albums know I am a fan of Kelly Gurkut and his more prominent vocal parts, and he has been great on this album as well. It is a shame that after this album he would be sidelined into a more background role for the band's next several studio albums. The Well is the real instrumental track of Out of the Blue, and it works well enough. There's a lot of weird synth stuff going on here with the stereo zoom effects, the vocoder, and of course the synth string combination working well once again. The song also has some nice industrial sonal sounds buried in there at times, something which feels ahead of its time in terms of usage of like sampling and industrialized kind of sound effects. The opening of the song is admittedly a bit slow, but it works quite well, being a better song than some of the album's other tracks that do have lyrics. Overall, the song has some well-sound song sounds, and it's supposed to have an underwater feeling to it. This whole sort of space world vibe would be embraced in the 1980s, and Wells would become a popular sci-fi thing, and Saving Wells would become one of only a few fads that ultimately reached a good end as opposed to just kind of fizzling out as a nothing burger. But hey, Electric Light Orchestra beat Star Trek, Free Willy, and all the rest of them to the punch. Here it is, The Well. Alright, moving on. Birmingham Blues is a song about a man who is traveling and gets homesick, aka the Birmingham Blues. But once he returns home again to Birmingham, he gets Wanderlust, aka the rest of the world blues. This sort of subversion is a smart one, but otherwise the rest of the lyrics are pretty standard. Musically, it has a nice classic 50s sounding rock guitar to it and prominent hand claps. The pop from across the border with a vocally imitated train whistle makes a surprising return here, and the hey-heys and more Knopfler-esque woohoos in the backing also provide a nice vocal backing throughout. The song also has a nice start and stop to it, with two different parts and a nice beat throughout. This is a pretty good album track, although it pales in comparison to much of the rest of the album. Werst Hero is a song about a man who is daydreaming about being a heroic Wild West cowboy. The song has a bit of an overly cheery view of the life of a cowboy, viewing them as the 20th century TV depiction of them as the 19th century knight errant, as opposed to people who actually, transport cows around and stuff like that. The New World also seems to have a fantasy of helping the Native Americans live to be free, which I guess is a savior narrative, which fits in for the rest of the song's fantasy talk of helping the townsfolk and whatnot. This sort of children's fairy tale vignette was the format used throughout on 1974's concept album El Dorado, and this song feels like it would feel right at home on that album. Werst Hero also starts out with a bit of a ragtime piano and some horse galloping noises. The song then goes into a piano ballad, and eventually goes into a slightly more country-sounding chorus. After that, you have a nice 50s guitar solo, which pairs well with the ragtime piano to make a surprisingly heavy break in the song. Throughout the song, we also have the strings and the choir hamming it up throughout, which is always appreciated. Later on, we have a break where the chorus is sung with only some thunder noises in the background. This is kind of like a mashup of Summer and Lightning and the ending of Sweet Talkin Woman. This helps Werst Hero call back to the earlier parts of the album, and serves as a more appropriate musical ending than it otherwise would have been. Werst Hero is a pretty good song to end off the album, albeit I do feel like several other songs would have been better album closers. That said, the song harkening back to El Dorado, as well as the returning musical ingredients from earlier on in Out of the Blue, helped this song to land the album off on a good foot. So before we move on to the song-by-song reviews, and then finally the ultimate overall album review score, I do want to, of course, look at the sleeve, as I always do. There it is, very nice front sleeve, and if you look at the back, you can see it's also very nice, and you can actually spread this out, and it will make one large image, which actually probably looks better on camera than it does in real life, but overall a pretty nice thing. I like the astronauts over here that are floating out in space. The off in the corner, of course, the big yellow spaceship that returns once again from a New World Records cover, but in a bit more kind of shiny airbrushed look to it, I guess, this time. Yeah, you also got the yellow shuttle with the logo from a New World Record, actually, funnily enough, on it, kind of docking. Got some nice kind of weird detailing here, some kind of greebling and whatever. It's a very nice, kind of very 70s sci-fi retro-futurist looking image. Very nice, I quite like that. And also, of course, we have it in a gatefold, so we have inside. Speaking of retro-futurist, you've got all kinds of stuff here. You got little spaceman. I'm guessing this is the inside of the yellow saucer. Get all kinds of stuff. You have this nice kind of green neon line here. You got this kind of orange one. You got kind of the center that's very Star Trek looking, very sci-fi, very 70s, although, you do have the people in kind of just normal white spacesuits. Very nice drawing there. Very kind of indicative of an oddball sci-fi feel. You got these bars, you got some sort of round chamber thing going on there. You've got some other little, machines back there. And this is like a central console or something, I don't know. Very nice, quite nice. I don't really know exactly how to describe it, but quite nice. Of course, you also have printed liner, which I'm getting out here. Got the lyrics up against kind of a nice spacey background, kind of a dark blue within blue and kind of red and green spots and a few streaks and whatever. Nice, very spacey. You got that. You also have credits here, some of which discuss some odd things, such as Bev Bevan using Bev Bevan drumsticks. That side. And record themselves don't particularly have anything too interesting. They're just on the Jet label, although if you had all their copies of this, it would be on United Artists. Too bad they didn't do unique labels for this album like they did with a New World Record, but, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, that's basically all for the packaging. Now let's move on to the song-by-song final rankings, and then, of course, the album final review score. Okay, for my final review scores, I give Turn to Stone, 10 out of 10. It's Oval, 10 out of 10. Sweet Talkin Woman, 10 out of 10. Across the Border, 8 out of 10. Nine of the City, 10 out of 10. Starlight, 6 out of 10. Jungle, 7 out of 10. Believe Me Now / Stepping Out, 6 out of 10. Standing in the Rain, 8 out of 10. Big Wheels, 7 out of 10. Summer Lightning, 8 out of 10. Mr. Blue Sky, 10 out of 10. Sweet as the Night, 10 out of 10. The Well, 8 out of 10. Birmingham Blues, 7 out of 10. Werst Hero, 8 out of 10. And overall, I'm giving this album a 9 out of 10. I like this almost as much as the previous three albums, but not quite as much, partly due to, as I said earlier, I feel like it does have some pacing issues. If this album was like side 1 and 3 is just a single LP album, it would be a 10 out of 10. And honestly, maybe you could find other configurations of the sides that would, as a single LP, make it a 10 out of 10. But as it is, I'm subtracting 1 point, partly for pacing, but also partly because I do feel like there are some slightly weaker songs like Stepping Out and Starlight that just barely add up for enough for me to subtract a point and make this a 9 out of 10 and not a 10 out of 10, but it comes close. It comes pretty close to 10 out of 10. So yeah, Out of the Blue, great album. One of the better double albums that have ever been made, although, as I said, I do prefer Electric Light Orchestra's single LP albums. Let me know your thoughts on this album. Am I being too harsh? Do I just have a short attention span? Is that why I'm complaining about the pacing? Once again, I want to thank everyone who got this video for watching, and urge everyone to please like and subscribe and comment. And if you haven't done so already, go watch my other Electric Light Orchestra album reviews. I have reviewed Electric Light Orchestra 2, On the Third Day, El Dorado, Face the Music, and A New World Record, all of which are, you know, Electric Light Orchestra albums, great albums. I've also reviewed plenty of other albums as well. You might want to go check those out as well. I will have a link to the album review playlist below, so maybe scroll through that and see if there's anything there that you might be interested in that isn't Electric Light Orchestra. I also host a podcast called The Rock Roundtable. It comes out on Wednesdays, and we have been discussing music on that as well. We haven't done an episode on Electric Light Orchestra yet, but we will at some point. Maybe go check those out, listen to them as well. And also, I will have a link to my Discord server below as well. Please join that if you're able to. And once again, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.